judges for the contest, 48-46, 48-46, and 47-47 for the winner by majority decision, and
still, ladies and gentlemen, the undisputed African fighting podcast champion of the world. Welcome back to Fighting with Friends. BG's with me already, as you can see. What's happening, BG?
Good, bro. Blessed to be here. Happy to be here. Super stoked for what's in store today. How's
Always
things?
stoked to have you, man. Speaking of what is in store, ladies and gentlemen, we do, of course, have a special guest with us this afternoon for us here. It is, of course, training out of Team Escapology, representing the UK. It is the mighty Jack Sear. What's happening, Jack Sear?
Yes, guys. Thank you for the intro. Stoked to be here.
Super stoked to have you, bro. Thank you so much for being here once again. So yeah, for anybody who doesn't know Jack Sear, maybe you could just give us a quick introduction as to what you're about.
Yeah, of course. I am based out of the UK. I am a professional grappler. I joke sometimes that I'm a part-time pro because jiu-jitsu is not where I make my money, but competing at a pro level, been training for, I think it'd be 12 years this year, black belt, fairly active, specifically on like the European circuit. Yeah, that's pretty much me in a nutshell.
Cheers, Jack. And so we do know that you are headed to Serbia soon for the ADCC trials. Could you tell us a little bit about how the training is going, and maybe just a bit about the format as to what happens over the trials and possibly what happens next from there?
Yeah, so I'm off to Serbia next week. First time in Serbia. The trials are by far my favorite tournament to compete in. I feel like the energy at the trials is unmatched, and that's partly because there's like 100+ guys in my bracket, and we've all got the same goal, right? Everyone who's willing to pay to fly to Serbia, the flights, go through all the training, they're committed and they want to win it. So I feel like when you get there on the day, the energy is different to a lot of other competitions I do. But training's been good. At the moment I'm doing kind of 3 sessions in the mornings, 3 in the evenings, a couple days lifting, some conditioning as well. With this rule set, it's a lot more wrestling focused. So this alters my training a lot. There's a lot more focus on wrestling, both from the feet, both from wrestling up from guard, playing the turtle position. But yeah, it's like, I'd say the most physically exhausting tournament to prepare for as well, just because of that focus on wrestling. And this trials will be slightly different I think this is the 7th time I'm doing the European trials. Normally it's held on just a single day. So you do 6 or 7 matches to win in one day, which is quite long. I've been there before where we've gotten there at 9 a.m. and we don't leave the venue till like 10, 11 at night. This time they're kind of mirroring what they do in the US. So it will be, I think, 3 or 4 matches on day 1, 3 or 4 matches on day 2. So this is I suppose a new challenge that I'm going to have to overcome.
Yeah, it does sound absolutely exhausting, bro. And we, of course, wishing you all the best for that one. But just on that, so of course, there's a lot of riding on it. Like you said, everyone who comes there buys the ticket to go to Serbia, very invested in it. Is there anything that you can kind of share with the audience about what it takes to perform when the stakes are that high and when the pressure's that high? Is there any secret to it, or is it just something that you're born with?
No, I think over the years I've gotten a lot more comfortable with competing. I'll definitely not shy away from the fact that there's been like periods where I liked the idea of competing, but then when it got to it on the day, I was kind of like, oh, I'm not up for this. You know what I mean? And I think it's about really thinking about why you're doing this in the first place and kind of accepting nerves on the day, right? Because at the end of the day, everyone is going to be nervous, and that's normal. But I think the ones who deal with this better is those who accept nerves but don't necessarily show them, right? So that's like both in the sense of I'm not going to talk about the fact I'm nervous, and from a body language perspective, I'm not going to convey to anyone that I'm nervous. And I think this can give you the upper hand, right? I've had matches before where I've been quite nervous for, but I've put on kind of brave face and kind of like bottled it up and just focused on the task ahead. And then I've got to the point where I'm about to step on the mats and I see my opponent is nervous and he's not dealing with it as well as me. And this gives you the kind of the extra boost going into that match, right? Gives you the upper hand. So I think this is mainly it. Is I think at the start a lot of people are trying to not get nervous, right? They're putting a lot of effort into this part, but it's inevitable. You have to accept the nerves are going to be there. We don't do this every day, right? That's part of the reason why. The other part is because of kind of how much time and effort you put into it. So just accept the nerves for what they are. The focus should be on just giving max effort, right? You can't necessarily control the outcome. You can control your effort. So as long as you go out there and ensure that you're you're giving the best version of yourself, this is all you can do at the end of the day, and the result will sort itself.
Nice one,
Mine.
Jack. Yeah, do agree there. All right, okay. So after the ADCC trials, you're heading to Polaris on the
Yes.
7th of March, I believe. So for any of the more casual fans, myself included, maybe you could just tell us a bit about Polaris and kind of what sets it apart in terms of its rule set and how you like your chances going into that tournament.
Yes. So this will be my 8th time, I think, competing on Polaris. Polaris was, I suppose, when I started taking competition seriously, I really only set myself 2 goals. One of these was to get onto Polaris and win a match, which I've been able to accomplish. The other one was winning ADCC trials. So next week we can tick that one off. But yeah, Polaris. I think the thing with Polaris that separates itself from a lot of other organizations is just consistency. There's been a lot of jiu-jitsu, like pro jiu-jitsu shows that have come and go over the years, and some of those would have had bigger budgets than Polaris, right? And they would have gone more crazy with production, more crazy with matchmaking, but ultimately it wasn't sustainable. So they disappear within a year, 2 years, right? Polaris has been going on since I pretty much started training jiu-jitsu, right? I remember when the first event was announced, and I think because they've been consistent and they've not kind of stretched themselves, you've got this kind of longevity aspect with Polaris, right? And I think when it started, it was kind of stand out as one of the best like shows in Europe, and now I think based on where it's at today, you can say it's one of the best pro shows in the world. They take very good care of you. Matchmaking's always very solid, and yeah, it's a blessing that I've been able to compete for them as much as I have. And then yeah, on the 7th of March, I'm going against a guy called Romao. So he's a Brazilian competitor based in the UK. I've never competed against him before. I think we've been in brackets before, but yeah, I've known of him for a long while. He trains out of London Shoot Fighters, so an MMA gym. I think his style is slightly more oriented towards MMA, whereas I am kind of out and out jiu-jitsu guy. But yeah, he's aggressive. He pushes a fast pace. I'm always kind of very submission oriented, so I think the combination of those two things should mean it's going to be a good match.
Looking forward to it, Jack. Just before I hop off and hand over to BG, is there any way that we'd be able to watch those fights for the Polaris? Do you
So
know? Do you
both
have any-
Polaris and ADCC trials will be on Flow Grappling. However, I believe my match on Polaris is prelims, and as far as I'm aware, the prelims will stream free on YouTube. So there will be a link out. I will post it in my story on Instagram. But yeah, I believe as far as I'm aware, I'm on prelims. So you should be able to watch live and free on YouTube.
Let's
Oh.
go. We'll definitely keep a lookout for that. All right, BG, over to you now, sir.
It's my turn. Jack, I want to say again, thank you so much, my friend, for taking this time out. It brings so much joy to us to be able to talk to professional fighters like yourself. So again, thank you so much for that.
Thank you. I appreciate the invite.
I want to take you back to your one championship debut, December 12th, 2025, where you fought against what's his name? Shoya Ishiguro, who I think is a very, very top level fighter. But I want to get your initial thoughts when you got the call up to compete at one championship, once you got that
Yeah.
first into your mind, and how did it feel when you got that opportunity?
Yeah, so I think because I've had some high profile matches previously, sometimes I get messages or kind of friends within the jiu-jitsu scene will message me about certain opportunities, right? And I've learned that over the years, not all of these opportunities are going to come to fruition. So sometimes I have to not get too excited just because an idea is being floated about. But yeah, someone I knew reached out to me, and they basically said, look, it's an outside chance, but do you have are you able to get any more time off from work this year, because I might have an opportunity for you in Thailand. So I was like, look, I've got a little bit of time left. I think I've got like a week's holiday left with work, so right, yeah, let's explore it. And I wasn't first priority. There were some other people in the ahead of me in the queue, and I always worry with kind of these larger shows like UFC BJJ that's running now. They are very focused on social media presence, and this is one area of weakness for me, right? I think because I have a day job, I have a family, just getting enough training in is the biggest challenge, right? And if I do have any spare time, that's kind of where I want to put it. So my social media hasn't always been as active as it should be. So I thought this was probably going to mean that I wasn't going to get selected for the opportunity we won. But there was some good luck in my favor, where some of the other people that were in consideration couldn't make it. And then I got the message on WhatsApp basically saying, look, you're in. I had a quick call with a matchmaker, ran through some details. It was super surreal. Obviously, even before I started training jiu-jitsu, I probably watched MMA for a good 5-6 years before this. And similarly to how I was talking about Polaris, right? One, have that longevity aspect. They've been around for a long time. A lot of my favorite fighters fight for one. I'm from an MMA perspective, huge Shinya Aoki fan. I really like John Lineker. I've been to train with John Lineker in Brazil as well. So I've paid very close attention to one over the years. So to get that opportunity was, very surreal.
Absolutely. I can tell the excitement on your face. I'm going a little bit off script here, but to stay on that topic of getting the call for one championship, you don't have to answer, but if you can, was that a one fight contract, or is there potential for more fights to come from one championship?
So the contract was for the single match, but I believe they have matching rights for 6 months afterwards. So I'm able to do Polaris. This is fine. They have a good relationship, One and Polaris. But I think if anything comes up within kind of the first half of this year, I'll have to run it by them. I think there's a good chance that I could get asked to compete for them again, and obviously I'd be all over this. It was the best organization I've competed for in terms of professionalism, organization. They take good care of you. So I'll if they called me up tomorrow, I'd be quickly speaking to work, figuring out how I could get the time off.
Of course. I mean, I must say for myself, it's a global stage. I probably wouldn't have known about your name if I didn't see you perform at one championship. So I think it put a lot of eyes to the BJJ scene for one championship as well.
For sure.
You mentioned that you could potentially come back, and I want to take you to attention to your last opponent in one championship, in Shuya Ishiguro, and that's a high-ranked opponent. Let's be real. He fought the current champion in Diogo Reis right now, right? Now, I think it was as early as last year. So what I'm trying to say is that it was a big match in terms of taking out a highly ranked opponent for your debut fight in one championship. Do you think that firstly, what does it feel like once getting that win over such a big name like Ishiguro? Because you spoke about him off camera before we went live, that you actually watched some good tape about him, and I thought that was going to be a tough match for you. But you made it look a little bit easy. How did it feel for you getting the first win, and also as a British fighter in submission grappling in one championship, the first guy to do so? How does that feel for you?
Yeah, I was very happy. After I was announced as the winner, I kind of look back at the footage and I look back at the pictures, and I don't look as happy as I felt in the moment. I think there's always an element where if I win by submission, I'm going to be smiling, right? Because it's definitive. Whenever it goes to the judges, there's always that concern that potentially the other guy could get favoured. And I felt it was a back and forth match, so there was definitely the possibility of it maybe being scored for him as well. So I think I was feeling, the overwhelming feeling was relief that I'd been given this big opportunity and I hadn't squandered it, right? I'd made the most of it. But yeah, it was surreal getting to compete on that stage, getting the win. And it was a highlight of my career for sure.
Absolutely. I mean, like I say, I've been saying it all episode so far, but I don't think people realize what kind of a win that actually is when you consider who the opponent actually was. You know what I mean? It wasn't like you fought some unknown fighter as his filler fight for the card. It was actually against a guy that competes for the championship. So I think that's a massive win, in my opinion. So I want to congratulate him for that one again. But speaking about the champion in the division, Diogo Reis is the champion right now. He's a young guy, and I'm sure you know his name. He's a top level fighter as well. I just want to get your thoughts on what do you make of Diogo Reis, and how do you think you fare up against a champion like himself?
So I've got the utmost respect for Diogo. So he's obviously two-time ADCC champion. He's won 66 kilos the last two ADCCs. He's obviously the one champion. Diogo and I actually fought. It would have been about 2 or 3 years ago now on a show in Italy, and I had a decent moment at the start of the match, and then the rest of the match was him tearing up my guard. It was like a 15-minute match. He won by decision, and it was, I would say, like, I'm quite transparent about the fact that it was quite one-sided. I would love to get that match at some point. I know what level Diogo is on. I know what level I'm on. Ideally, I would probably like another match or 2-on-1 just to help build up my profile, get some additional time, make some kind of adjustments to my game. But yeah, if they offered me it again tomorrow, I'm going to say yes. But it's a very challenging match. I think he would obviously be favoured quite heavily in it, especially because we competed before, and considering how the last match went. But yeah, I'm confident in my abilities that I can submit anyone in my division on my day. So I would definitely be open to the rematch at some point.
Well, let's hope it happens. To be quite honest, I think you can get there after beating the guy who fought him last for the championship. I definitely believe that the opportunities are on the horizon.
Yes.
You mentioned something about him setting up your guard, and I wanted to ask you about that because it looked like playing guard was a little bit of your game against Ishiguro. It looked like you were very comfortable there, in my opinion, and you look most dangerous in that spaces of the game. Is that your preference, fighting in guard, or you prefer to be on top?
No, I definitely prefer. I've always been guard focused, and I think it comes from the fact that when I started training, I was really small. I was 19, but I was like 55 kilos to start with, and I trained at a small team locally to where I grew up. It was mainly in the gi for like the first year or so, and everyone I was training with was pretty much like 80 kilos plus. So there wasn't many opportunities for me to kind of out wrestle these people. There wasn't many opportunities for me to get on top. So the majority of the time I was kind of focused playing guard. After that initial kind of training period, I was at 10th Planet London for kind of 4 or 5 years. And obviously knowing the 10th Planet system, this is very kind of heavily focused on guard. So I kind of just built on that and ultimately become kind of my area of strength, right? I'm progressing in terms of being able to wrestle, play on top, pass, etc. But yeah, I suppose just based on the sheer amount of time I've put into it, the guard is definitely where I feel most comfortable.
Makes a lot of sense based on how you speak about the upbringing. The reason why I'm asking you that is I noticed that when you fought against Ishiguro, but I also wanted to get your opinion on this. So in that fight with Ishiguro, the One Championship commentating team had announced one of the rule sets of One Championships grappling, and one of it is that you can't actually pull guard. I want to know, what are your thoughts on this? Is that benefiting the fighters, or what does it mean for the sport if you're removing one of the aspects that fighters tend to, like yourself, like to play in, which is the guard?
Yeah, I understand why they've implemented this as a rule, and I think the main challenge they're trying to solve is optics, right? I think the goal would be for one, and the same for UFC BJJ, is to get as many kind of crossover fans as possible, right? So those people who are watching the UFC and watching one for MMA, to get those guys also interested in the submission grappling element. And I think one of the things those fans would probably find off-putting is a guy sitting to his bum and scooting along the floor. Or two people both sat on their butt, like pummeling legs, right? So I think they've implemented this rule for optics mainly, just so that we don't have that scenario occurring. But in terms of how that rule's enforced, it's slightly different, right? At the start of my match, Shoya pulls, but immediately swept me. So I don't think they mind necessarily if you pull, as long as there's action immediately. I think they don't want you kind of just sitting down without grips and then scooting towards someone. I did watch some of Shoya's matches previously, and there were occasions where the guys would try to pull and the other person would separate and break grips, and then they were standing them back up again. I think, the focus is really on the optics and ensuring that there is kind of a significant engagement off the bat, and that you're not just sitting for the sake of sitting. You're immediately sitting in and working. So, I'm happy with the rule.
Okay, I'm glad you said that, because I remembered when the commentator announced that rule, that's when Shuya actually pulled guard on you. But you mentioned he was in an active almost immediately afterwards. But I thought that was interesting. But anyway, thank you for
Yeah.
clearing up. I think
That's
that's
okay. Yeah.
my
My
question.
plan going in was he competes in IBJJF circuit a lot. So, and in the lower divisions of IBJJF, most of the people who have success are guard players. So I felt confident because I've been preparing a lot for the ADCC rule set. If we did stay on the feet, that I would be able to out wrestle him and take him down. And then my plan was to enter leg locks from top position. So I would still find my way into playing guard, but I would have to kind of navigate around the rule set.
Yes. Okay. Thanks, Jack. I think that clears up my list of questions. I think 80 will take over from here.
All right, so we're just gonna wrap it up with a few more, Jack. Just on the topic of rule set, and I think jiu-jitsu is still very much a niche sport, and it's like either you're in it or you're not. And you mentioned the thing about optics; they're trying to attract more kind of neutral crossover viewers to the sport. So, from your perspective, can you think of any adjustments that could be made to the format? Let's take one championship, for example, that could possibly make it more exciting for the more casual and more neutral viewers.
In terms of just like single matches, like I had with Shoya, this is where it's challenging, right? And it's really down to the grapplers themselves. I think we've seen so many different iterations of rule sets over the years that it's not a case of the rule set, it's the case of the intent of the people who are competing, right? If both of those guys are intent not only on defeating their partners but actively pursuing submissions, then I think you're going to get exciting matches, right?
Yes.
You're going to get scrambles, you're going to get cool exchanges, you're going to get shootouts. But yeah, the rule sets are, everyone's got like a slight variation to it, right? There's not a consistent rule set. If we're talking purely from the perspective of entertainment and what I think is the most exciting rule set, I think it's the team format, to be honest. So this past weekend, Polaris held an event in Wales, and Polaris have a format which they call squads. And essentially this is 6 people on each team. There's 2 different weight categories for the teams, but each, regardless of weight category, you could be a smaller guy competing against a bigger guy from another team, right? It's ran as winner stays on. So you have that element of, okay, someone's winning matches and maybe they defeat a couple of opponents, but then all of a sudden fatigue sets in and they may lose to someone that they would never normally lose to if they were both fresh. You also get the dynamic of the size differences between the two. And it's also ran in 2 45-minute halves. So I suppose there's an element of obviously football being the most popular sport in the world. There's some familiarity with this. I suppose there is more narrative behind a team, right? And tracking the score over the course of 90 minutes as opposed to like a 10-minute match. So yeah, purely for entertainment, I think this is the rule set that would be most appealing, both for some MMA fans and maybe even some casuals as well.
And from your perspective, is this something that you support? Because I mean, I know if I look at cricket, for example, when we had Pro 20 come in, a lot of the kind of more purists objected to the new format. Is this different kind of format something that you personally support, or are you more of kind of in the purist category that it should be kind of 1-to-1?
No, the thing for me would be to get as many people involved in jiu-jitsu as possible, right? Because then we benefit as athletes, right? There's more opportunities, there's more money in the sport. So if the way for us to get there is the teams format, then let's commit to that, right? I think there will never be a time where we're just doing teams. I think the individual tournaments, ADCC, IBJJF, these will all still run. But yeah, purely for getting more people involved. I love the squads format. I've attended some of these events like live in person. I can definitely attest to the fact that they are the most exciting jiu-jitsu events I've been to, both in terms of how I feel and kind of viewing the crowd as well. So fully supportive of this.
Handy peas. And then finally, sorry, BG, go.
Just on that, I wanted to ask Jack what his thoughts are on the Craig Jones Invitational, because that seems to be like hype and a lot of vibes. People seem to tune in. I mean, they got the Tolos and the Tackett brothers fighting. And they also fight with intent, which is what you referred to earlier, like trying to actually create those chaotic moments in there, which makes it more exciting. I wanted to get your thoughts on what about those kind of tournaments? Would you be keen to get involved in one like a CJI?
Yeah, this would be like bucket list for sure. I went to the first CJI in person,
Yeah.
so I got to view it and watch it in person. And yeah, for me, this was the most exciting event I've seen, especially because of the stakes, right? With there being $1 million on the line, the brackets were stacked, and as you mentioned as well, specifically the Rotolos and the Tackett brothers, they always compete with this level of intensity and purpose, right? Which means it's why they've got such a kind of a big following and such a big name, and they're getting these great opportunities. So yeah, this would be an absolute dream to get on a show like CJI.
Gonna
Let's
happen.
go, bro. Yeah, let's go. We wish you all the best for that, bro. And then yeah, we were just kind of talking about the sport itself. As someone who is so immersed in the sport, in terms of the growth that you've seen over the last 5 to 10 years, have you been surprised or have you been satisfied with the growth? What have you seen? And also for the future, what would you like to see more of in the space?
Yeah, I'd say I'm definitely pleasantly surprised. When I started, it was very niche, and it was still at the point where most people kind of didn't really even know what MMA was, right? And jiu-jitsu was almost like a subset of that. So whenever I told people I was doing jiu-jitsu, they thought I was doing like karate or something. So it's a little bit easier to explain now because of MMA's popularity. But yeah, if you'd have asked me kind of 12 years ago, would there be a tournament that's putting up a $1 million stake for jiu-jitsu, I would have bet probably not. So yeah, very happy to see where the sport's going. Even seeing over the last year or so how like the UFC is investing into jiu-jitsu as well, right? Whatever opinions people may have about the UFC, they are from a business perspective incredibly successful, and I don't think they would have invested in it if they didn't think there would be an opportunity to profit from this as well. So yeah, I'd say in terms of like direction, everything's heading in the right direction. I think I suppose it's just a case of wanting kind of continuing to grow from where we're at now, right? So more shows like this, higher salaries for people competing, bigger sponsorship opportunities. This is ultimately the direction I'd like to see. I don't know how much bigger it can get, like from being at that first CGI and seeing an arena of like, I think it was like 15,000 people. That was very special. I don't know if we could kind of extend that and get to starting to get to like football stadium size, right? Like 20,000 people. This would be crazy. But based on what I've seen so far, I think it's definitely possible.
Yeah, let's go, bro. The sky is the limit. I mean, like you said, we couldn't have predicted that it would have had such a mainstream explosion in recent times. So yeah, hopefully it continues into the future. Final question from us, Jack, is just you mentioned you like doing most of your work in guard and from the bottom. Can you reveal to us what your favorite submission is to catch and maybe one of your favorite memories of catching that submission?
Yes. So for me, it's always been the Go-Go Plata. Partly because when I first started watching MMA, I mentioned earlier I was a huge fan of Shinya Aoki. He's hit this a couple of times in MMA. I was a big Nick Diaz fan. He's got probably the most famous Go-Go Plata in MMA history against Takanori Gomi. So I already liked this just even before I started training, right? And it was even when I was growing up, I was always quite flexible. Like I wouldn't say I'm like a particularly great athlete. I'm not super strong. I'm not super quick, but I've always had like quite odd flexibility. So
Yeah.
when I
So the
started doing
profile
jiu-jitsu,
picture on Instagram.
yes. But it's not the coolest form of athleticism, right? I would much rather just be crazy strong or like super jacked, but I'll take it. And so when I started training, I was kind of just, I think your personality shines through a lot, and in terms of the techniques you invest in, especially early, you just kind of do what you want to do and what you think looks cool. So even as like a white belt, I was hitting some Goga Platas and stuff in the gym, and then I don't know how many I've hit in competition now. We're probably coming up to close to 10, and I think I've got 4 or 5 at black belt. In terms of which one I've enjoyed the most, I've hit 2 in like absolutes. So like an absolute is where like a normal, it'll be like a tournament. You'll compete within your weight category, and then at the end of the weight categories, all the weight categories get together. So me being one of the smaller guys, I could go against someone 90, 100 kilos. So I've hit a couple on some bigger people, which is quite satisfying. But I'd tell you that I hit one third round of the last ADCC trials, and yeah, it got like got a little bit more interest on social media, and it was yeah, I hit it pretty clean. So I'd say definitely Goga Plata. I think some submissions I think are definitely more efficient and effective.
Yes.
But there's something about the Goga Plata where I know that they'll be thinking about this later, right? If you get caught in an armbar, if you get heel hooked, if you get rear naked choked, this is going to happen quite regularly, right? And it's probably easier to get out of your mind. If you get Goga Plata, it's a little bit more humiliating. So I like these ones.
Let's go.
Love it.
You
Love
nearly
it.
hit it on Suga Ishiguro, actually. I was still watching the fight back. You went for it in that fight as well. And I was like, oh,
I was trying because I was like, look, I know one have got the bonuses, right? And if I hit a Goga Plata, surely that's bonus money.
Let's go.
But I spoke to him afterwards, and he was well aware that this was a potential threat. So whenever I got to the position, he defended pretty well. So not this time, hopefully next.
Let's go.
Let's hope so. Let's hope so. All right. Well, cheers, Jack. Thank you so much once again for your time, bro. We're gonna wrap it up there. Is there anything you'd like to say to our subscribers? Just maybe. We know you're going to the ADCC next week. The trials are happening next week. You said the trials will be broadcasted live on YouTube. The prelims, I think.
Yeah. So I just want to say, firstly, thank you guys for the invite. Big thank you to anyone that listens. Yeah, trials next week will be on Flow Grappling. And then March 7th, Polaris. Prelims will be on YouTube. Main card on Flow. Thank you to Tatami Fightwear. They've been my sponsor for like the last 4 or 5 years. Everyone I train with, I train at a couple of different gyms, so I don't want to kind of reel through the list and miss someone and feel bad afterwards. But yeah, anyone I train with, anyone who supports me, a big thank you to them as well.
Yeah, Jack, again, just thank you so much once again for your time. BG, any final words for our guest here before we let him go?
I just want to wish Jack all the best. I'm looking forward to seeing you perform. You become very much a favorite very quickly. Only after seeing one fight, I'm like, I want to watch this guy grapple some more. So I hope that you get more opportunities at one championship, and all of the best for yourself and your career, man. You're an absolute star. Let's go.
Appreciate that, guys. Thank you for the time.
Cheers, Jack.
Sorry. Last question. Sorry, before Jack goes.
It's okay.
Who will be winning the Premier League this year?
So I grew up as a Manchester United fan, and fortunately for me, the time when I got more invested into MMA was around the time Sir Alex Ferguson left. So I timed it very well. I'm definitely not going to say Arsenal. Most of my family support Arsenal. My best friend's a Man City fan. You know what? I'm not an avid football fan anymore. United are on a good run at the moment. Miracles can happen, so I'm sticking with United.
Let's go.
You got to back your boys. You got to back your boys.
Let's go. Cheers once again, Jack. Thank you so much, bro. We'll let you go now. Have
Cheers,
a good
guys.
one and all the best for the trials. We'll keep
Appreciate that. Catch you guys soon.
Cheers, brother. Thank you. All right, BG. That was Jack Sear, ladies and gentlemen. If you have made it this far in the video, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Fighting with Friends. BG, any final words from you for the people?
Just one thing I wanted to touch base and also get your perspective on this, AD. So I thought it was quite a cool answer he gave when you asked him about what could be done to attract more casual fans to the game of jiu-jitsu. And I think the key takeaway for me from his statement was fighter's intent. You can only change so much of the rule set, right? But I think what he brought on was fighter's intent. And I think that is a big point, because I remember when you first watched any of the Tolo brothers compete in jiu-jitsu, you were like this. You were like, what the hell am I watching? It blew you away, right? And that's because they intentionally try to light up the stage, right? I wanted to get your thoughts on that opinion, or on Jack's answer when it came to that. What do you make of it?
Yeah, I strongly agree. I mean, like you said, case in point, bro. There are fighters who do go for the submissions. What I might want to see, which we have discussed on the channel before, was possibly a kind of sudden death, like a 5 minutes. If it does go to
Oh,
stalemate
yeah.
after 10 minutes, like maybe they go to a final 5 minute down just to see go for broke here, guys, and let's see if you can produce anything. I think that might be a bit more intense, but I do agree that the incentive at the end of the day is finishes and entertainment. People want to see finishes, and it does come down to intent at the end of the day, which is we have seen fighters who have demonstrated this. So, I do agree with that, bro. From your side?
Yeah, dude, the fact that you brought up the 10-minute and sudden death round, I think that's a good thing to sort of, if you are going to be sort of playing around with rule sets because of you can't really control the fighter's intentions, that would be a great rule. Instead of 10 minutes, you can get a sudden death, or you could break it into like a 3-minute rounds or 4-minute 3-4-minute rounds. You know what I mean? That could also change the way they compete over the course of the rounds, knowing that if you don't get a sub, but you might get 2 catches in that first round, but they didn't tap out your opponent, you bag that round 10-8. Things like that, you know what I mean? So, I think that's something to maybe think about. Is maybe breaking it down to specific rounds, maybe because that might just change how the fighters approach the grappling per round. You know what I mean? Instead of just having a full 10 minutes. But I do like the idea of introducing something like a sudden death afterwards, because you really can't actually control the intentions of a fighter. You can tell them, listen, there's bonuses, so we want to see more finishes, but that still may or may not guarantee, the fighter going out there and giving his or her all. So maybe if there's rounds, they could change the way they approach the fight. I may go harder in the second round, or I may go harder in the third. I might just look for the finish in the first and not even go to the later rounds. It could just change so much of the approach to jiu-jitsu in itself, because now we're breaking it down into rounds. I don't know.
I mean, the thing is, if it was broken down into rounds, you also would have the opportunity for the athlete to be cornered. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That might open up some different dimensions of the fight that in the fight the athlete might not have been able to see. So it's definitely a very interesting discussion to be had. I'd love to get the thoughts from the audience in the comment section. But yeah, BG, anything else from your side, bro?
No, I just think what would be a good idea as us as creators is to sort of help bring the casual fans over to jiu-jitsu is maybe we start doing some watch-alongs of the jiu-jitsu tournaments that are on YouTube. I mean, when you said Jack Sear Polaris is going to be on YouTube, the prelims, it wouldn't be a bad idea to cover that, since we have investment in it now with Jack. And that might even itself start introducing a lot more eyes to the sport outside of just watching UFC invitationals, Craig Jones invitationals, or even one championship.
100%, PG. But all right, I'm gonna get off the stage and I'll let you tell people maybe what they can expect to just kind of sign up for us for the day, bro.
Let's go. So everybody, thank you for tuning in. Like we said, thank you for subscribing and then taking the time to listen to Jack give us his opinions about the game and also what's happening next for the man. But for Fighting with Friends, what you guys can expect for the remainder of the week, we will have our Hours of Betting Man segment coming out live tomorrow evening. That's South African time. And then also what you can expect on Thursday is the preview for one Friday fight 141. It's a banger of a card. Can't wait to put that preview together for you guys. And then on Friday, the usual time slot of 1 South African time, we will be live to one championship Friday fights 141. And then for the remainder of the week, we're probably not going to be doing a live with the UFC, but we will obviously report back by doing a nice recap for the following week. So that's what you can expect for the remainder of the week. On that note, like, share, subscribe, or give Jack a shout, or follow him on Instagram, get involved in the banter, and have a fantastic week, evening, morning, afternoon, wherever you're watching from. And we will catch you guys in the next one. Cheers.